You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike Tussaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for everyone's favorite bi-weekly options program. Also time to commence our broadcast week here on the old network. And of course, we do it in high style with the program that is known far and wide, hither and yon, as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. As well as, of course, from the ever-exciting, at least we tend to think so, Options Insider Radio Network. Of course, if you guys want to join us, you want to go above and beyond, you want to get access to those awesome Options Insider Pro Trading crates that we just give away willy-nilly to you folks. I'm looking at a mountain of stuff over here. It's all going to go out to you folks. So top all the bandwidth we're paying, all the shipping, all the stuff. You know what? We like you all. Of course, you get access to exclusive shows tomorrow, great pro Q&A coming at you, as well as Options Oddities coming up at the end of the week. So you get 2 exclusive shows. Of course, you get live access to this and everything else we do here throughout the week and a whole bunch more. TheOptionsinsider.com/pro, or for you cool kids out there, /secret club is the place to go to begin your journey to the dark side. Let's see who's joining us on the dark side this week. Unfortunately, it looks like Uncle Mike going to be absent out there again today. But we'll, I think, have him back on the Thursday episode. So that means we got a solo flyer, a solo contestant once again for our Name That 80s Wrestler. Of course, I'm talking about the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the program. Are you ready? Are you in prime 80s wrestler guessing form, sir?
I am indeed.
You know, last week I was charitable to Uncle Mike. I gave him kind of a bit of a tie because he couldn't make it. But this week what we're going to do is, it's not fair to you to keep giving him bonus points. So what we're going to do is we're going to play the game like usual. I won't give you any hints this time. No hints. We'll see if you can get it without, if you get it without a hint, then it's a fair point to you. And if not, there shall be no points awarded this week. I know our audience is going to get it. They're always super fast. So I'll set it up for you this way. I will just say this is a tag team music. I will say this is 80s tag team music. They were a big tag team, and then I'll just, if I give you any more specifics, I risk letting the cat out of the bag. I will just say they were a tag team for a while. Then the tag team went away, and one of them had a solo career, and that is all I will say. Can you name this 80s tag team? You got it already?
Yeah.
Was my hint too broad?
Yeah, I would have known the music no matter what you did.
You know Rockers music?
That one I knew. It's the Rockers.
Were you a rocker as a kid? Were you rocking the day glow streamers and the long hair?
Marty Jannetty was the best.
Marty Jannetty. Yes, don't go searching for that guy now. It's kind of a bit of a dark area of the internet. Talk about two career paths just kind of diverging, right? Shawn Michaels becoming one of the biggest things in the business, and Marty Jannetty, people are like, whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels put him through a barbershop window, and his career was never the same after that, sir. So, yes, intriguing stuff. So, fair play. A point for you, sir, for the Rockers. I'll have to go see if our chat got it. I'll have to go check in a second as we keep on rolling. Did you get it at home, listeners? What's your record? Hit us up. What's your record here on the old Guess That 80s Wrestler Palooza? As we keep on rolling, it is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
Oh, I see some guesses for Gold Dust in our chat. Whoa. That's a left field one. Also, some talk about Fields and the shotgun formation on that. Yeah, I know there was a lot to talk about with
Don't get me
with
started.
The madness of this weekend. Interesting stuff afoot there. I thought for sure, to bring it back to markets and money for a second, Mr. Meatball, the Bears were 10-point underdogs. I thought for sure they could get within 10.
I thought they were going to cover 2. And they were about to until they got that crappy call.
That crappy call. So I had them. I had them within 10. I took them with the points.
I don't understand. They drive so well, then they decide to get completely away from it. One more good drive, and then they could have done the play action the rest of the game, and they would have been able to win. Instead, they immediately get away from what they were doing right. Then they get back to it, and lo and behold, they can drive again. I don't understand. It's a second game. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They'll get there. I think what I'll say is they lost, but it was not an embarrassing loss.
No, they had moments. Well. They got to Rodgers. They stuck the dagger first. They got the first touchdown, so they were looking pretty good. And then it kind of fell apart.
They scored on that play and got screwed by and let's talk about that. How was that not a clip on that kickoff that the kid brought it back? They should have the ball on the 18-yard line. Instead, they had it on the 42 because they didn't call a blatant clip.
The fun thing that cracks me up, too, how much money does Amazon spend on the football? And, I'll talk about their next-gen stats. We have no sensor in the ball to determine how far it progresses. That seems to be a pretty obvious thing. You can't tell the ball breaks the goal line. That should be an obvious thing. Hey. But I digress, listeners. I was not foolish enough to go money line on the Bears. I'm not that big of a sucker. My son wanted me to go money line. I said, no, I'm going to take the points because I don't know if they could do it. I watched a lot of their preseason games, and their starters were not exactly blowing the world apart. And then, of course, they beat the Niners out of the blue. So I thought maybe they had a chance, but I'll take the points. And alas, it did not go that way. At least for some of our listeners, there's some Pack fans out there, so enjoy it. They'll get Rodgers again in the end. Not this time, though. Looks like the market might get us. And it gets one of these markets, again, listeners, where if you don't like what's going on, you just wait 5 minutes because it's changing all the time. This is definitely one of those whipsaw-y type of days. To start the day off, we were feeling a little bit of dark side, a little bit of red on the screen. Market was hanging out around 38.50 to kick off the day. Then we rallied, got all the way up to not quite 38.90. We're pretty close, about 38.85. Or so, then kind of gave it back up down to about 38.60, and we've been kind of just vacillating all over the place. Bulls and Bears fighting it out as they are wont to do. Right now, as we're kind of coming into this portion of the trading block here, the markets are still red, but ever so slightly off about 0.1%. The Dow is kind of unched, and the Nasdaq's off about 0.1% as well. Wait 2 seconds, it'll tick green again. So it's just one of those days, listeners. As we kicked off the show, the VIX was hanging out exactly unched. How crazy is that, listeners? That's a very rare thing. It was 26.30 when we kicked off the show, which is exactly where we were on our last show. VVIX, same deal, 92, unched from where it was on Thursday's show. So we're 0 for 2 there in terms of movement. VXX, who knows what the hell this thing is up to anymore. Right now, for some reason, known only to the market gods, it is down 0.75 point. Apparently more sellers than buyers out there today. UVXY, 10.25, down about 0.15, so down a little bit on the day. SVIX, our inverse friend, down 1.25, 12.15 out there. So SVIX not getting any love, getting crushed out there today. UVIX 1040 down about 0.2 of a point or so out there. And our old friend VALE, aka the at the money vol of the NASDAQ 100. No skew, not messing around with any skew in VALE. It's just the facts, ma'am, just at the money vol. 32 even when we kicked off the show, up about 0.75 of a point. Mr. Meatball, right before we kicked off the show, you were calling this market a rope-a-dope market. What do you mean by that, sir, and what's lighting up your tape out there today?
I mean, when we came in, the market opened, pre-market we're down 35.40 in the S&P. Then, we open up down 30, 25, 30, and then it's been basically kind of bouncing around unchanged since then. And I got to tell you, I think they're going to buy into the afternoon. And we're going to maybe make a run at 3,900, maybe hang around 3,750. But I'm liking this market to potentially move up because, when we open all of the big difference between a lot of these opens, and you started to see it on Friday, right? Friday was another big old fooled you because, we opened down and then kind of rallied, and then they sold it again, and it looked like we were going to fall apart. And then, lo and behold, short squeeze into the close. So I just think that this market, the Fed put no longer exists, but the S&P put does exist, and people are long a lot of them.
So you think we have a bit of a floor in for the market right here? We can't really break too much below 3,800. Is that what you're thinking?
I think we can. But it's going to be in fits and starts. My guess is this little squeeze higher is weaker than the last one. Then, we'll see what happens post-Fed, and then maybe we get some selling. But it's not going to happen quickly. It's going to happen, kind of in fits and starts. And if we can break 37.50, then maybe we'll get some movement lower. But until then, that's about it.
It is funny because everyone just last week or just a few days ago was saying, well, once you break 3,900 to the dark side, look out below. All bets are off. And, in reality, we were just back to where we were about 10 days ago out there in the markets. Intriguing stuff. Seems like also, Mr. Meatball, this is, a topic we were debating quite a bit a couple of months ago. We had questions of the week about it and everything else. It seems like we may have our answer now, which is, of course, can this market sell off without VIX really blowing up, without VIX hitting, north of 40, let alone, as some people wanted, 60, 80, north of these crazy levels out there? Seems like we have our answer now, Mr. Meatball, which is we can keep doing this, and VIX doesn't need to hit a 40 buff, sir.
Yeah, I think it's 100% set up for that. And part of the reason is because of the big underlying bid. And, I don't know how many times we can talk about VIX upside, but you got a market that's this hedged and long this many dollars, then you're not going to see that much vol blowing up. You just won't.
Not much vol blowing up, and that's pretty much the case right now, listeners. We are literally unched when we kicked off the show. What are your thoughts? We have another question of the week going right now, but I'd be curious to know your thoughts on what you think about this market, and can we go lower? Are we going to vacillate around out here? What do you think is up with all this madness afoot out there? Let's see what kind of madness is afoot out there. First, it was bigger on Friday, not so much of a big dog out there right now. This is VIX, usually a whipsaw-y kind of day. Starts off red, a little bit of whipsaw action. That's usually a recipe for some paper in VIX land. Today, it's not nothing, but it's also not blowing the doors off. 191,000 contracts on the tape right now. The ADV also looking pretty anemic, 376. That's the kind of ADV you would expect in, late December or in the dog days of August there. Not quite right now, but hey, we shall see. I thought maybe Friday's numbers would help goose that up a little bit, but so far hanging out 376 right now. SPY looking a little bit different. SPY looking more robust, 4.73 million contracts on the tape right now, and that ADV looking pretty firm at 7.6 million contracts out there. Let's go to the S. 1.33 million contracts on the tape for the S, so that's a pretty robust day for the S as well. The the major equity indices like themselves a little bit of whipsaw action, and that is certainly being shown in the numbers we're seeing in the S right now. 2.5 million is the ADV right now. So that's a pretty robust ADV for the S. Small caps, at least the IWM flavor. If you want rut and all that goodness, check out TWIFO every Thursday, listeners. 362,000 contracts on the tape for all things IWM right now. The ADV 884. So that's also pretty inflated out there. It's interesting. All the ADVs are inflated except for VIX, which is a little bit interesting out there. And then the Qs, 1.6 million on the tape. The ADV right around 2.7 million. So the Qs seem like they're on pace to hit their ADV by the end of the day. Let's get on out to the single names out there today and see what's lighting it up. And it's a bit of a quiet day out there, listeners, from a single name perspective. Looks like we have some frequent offenders with a couple interesting, I won't call them newcomers, but return players, shall we say. Let's start off with a name that's been popping up on the top 10 a lot lately, holding down the number 10 spot. Only cost you 177,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today, listeners. That is not a heck of a lot. And that gets you to the artist formerly known as Facebook. This is Meta Platforms, Inc. Trading right now 156 and about a third, up a whopping 3 cents. So kind of unched right now. It's kind of hanging out like the market, kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop out there. It's had a range right now of about $2.70, but low of about 145, and the high right around 147.80. So about 270 right there, 150.45.10 to be precise on the low side there. So intriguing stuff there. A lot of range right now, hanging out pretty much right in the middle of that range. And again, good for 177,000 contracts. Number 9, another M-related name, also has been a frequent offender in our top 10 of late. 180,000 contracts on the tape for good old Softy. That a little bit different story in Softy. It's at 242 right now, off about 2 3/4 or a little over 1% on the day. It's had a range of, looks like about 244.60 on the high and a low of around 240.85 out there today. So a pretty decent range, and it has rebounded off the lows, but still down net on the day out here. Number 8, this one has been popping into our radar quite a bit of late. And again, last time we talked about it, it was actually up, which is a rare occurrence. We don't usually talk about this name unless it seems like it is just falling off the face of the earth and taking the rest of the market with it. This is the artist formerly known as the Widowmaker. This is Netflix. Not so much the Widowmaker too much anymore, except for these big explosive moments it has about once every couple of years. Netflix right now, 238, pretty much even, off about $2 or almost a full percent on the day. It's had a range of about 235 3/4 on the low side. And my goodness, 245 1/4 on the high. So nearly a 10-point range, $9.50. Wow. Netflix has been rocking and rolling out there today. No wonder why it's on our top 10, even though it's still only number 8. Only 181,000 contracts. You think it would be a little bit more robust with such an active amount of range. Has all this action, listeners, has that turned you back into Netflix? You guys out there slinging options on Netflix again? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. Let's go out to number 7. This is Google, a.k.a. Alphabet, a.k.a. the artist formerly known as Google. 102 1/3, off about $0.50 right now. It's had a range of about 101.5 and a high of about 202.5. So only about $1 range on the day for Google. So given what we're seeing out there, it's not that big. 189,000 contracts on the tape for them. Number 7. Number 6, AMD. They're usually hanging out somewhere in this level. This time it's number 6. Good for exactly 200,000. So all the way up to number 6 before we can even break 200K. So that shows you what kind of day we're having, listeners. 76.16 is where it's hanging out, off about $0.33. It's gotten as low as 75.35 and as high as 77.34. So a $1.99 range on the day out there. So decent range and decent amount of paper, not exactly blowing the doors off. Usually this time of day, we can expect AMD to be roughly twice this. So again, kind of a quiet day out there, at least from a single name perspective, listeners. Let's go back out to number 5. Number 5, NVIDIA. Now we jump up a bit. Number 5, we're at 310, so that's a little bit more respectable. NVIDIA, 132, about 40, up, I should say, about 40 cents. On the day, they've had a range of about 130.10 and a high of 134.63, so they've had quite the range, about $4.50 on the day. And that's translating to some paper, again, 310,000 contracts on the day. Number 4, the Amazonians, the folks who, for all their next-gen stats, can't figure out where the tip of the ball gets on the field. I'm amazed we have this multi-billion-dollar industry known as football, and we still rely on a handful of old men to see where the ball goes down. And that's how we determine where progress is in this game. It's absurd. All these next-gen stats, except for the most important one, where the ball should be spotted. But hey, I digress. Amazon, number 4, 370,000 contracts on the tape. 123 and about 3/4, up about a quarter on the day. On the day, they've had a range of about 121.80 on the low and about 124.5 on the high. So they've had a bit of a whipsaw range out there again. And again, good for 370,000 contracts. Number 3, Mr. Meatball. I know this is one of your compatriot, the Rock Lobster's favorites. This is good old VALE, what we call sometimes colloquially good old VALE, just for fun. Of course, our old everyone's favorite Brazilian metals and mining name, trading $13.50 up about 60 odd cents or so on the day, nearly 5%. So a nice little pop for them. On the day, they've had about an 80-cent range, and they're pretty much hanging out right at the upside. This one has not been whipsawing at all. This one's been just shooting straight up all day. Good for 403,000 contracts. Mr. Meatball, I know the Rock Lobster. He loves this one for the dividend. He's always going on about the dividend. What have you guys been talking about in good old VALE lately, sir?
It's an interesting one. It has dollar exposure, which is never great. But it's in steel and mining and stuff like that. It's having a good day. We had a buyer of the OC14 calls today, or on the 12th. Today, the big volume is coming. Oh, wow. Look at this thing. All right, Mark. They sold, it looks like a big risk reversal. I think they bought 75,000 of the 11 puts. Then they sold the 14-15 call spread 150,000 times. So that would be where that volume is coming from. And let's see how much stock they did, because it was tied. And I'll find it here. Give me a second here, folks. 3.25 million shares for $13.24. So they bought put, bought stock, sold call spread, and they did a delta newt. Actually, that looks is that 1-to-1 or delta newt? No, that's delta newt.
Yeah, it looks like delta newt because the actual delta would have been it looks like a little higher. Would have been around like 6 million shares. That's some size paper. I said only 400,000 contracts, listeners. Yeah, 375 coming in this one massive trade. You know, I was joking with your compatriot there on the Options Oddity show recently, but you know, he was talking about this name. This is one of his favorites. I was joking that you can never really underestimate the desire of a corrupt state government to pay themselves money. And that's what this is. This is just a huge dividend play over and over again, and it's state run. So they're just funneling cash to themselves. So no growth. And someone wants to capture that dividend. They don't want to get wiped out in the stock, and they're putting on this pretty tight collar against it, listeners. Doing it on a ratio, too, which is interesting. Buying the puts and then doing 2x of the calls, but also doing the call spread. So they don't want to, if this thing does blow up or keep blowing up, they want to keep playing. So intriguing stuff. 375,000 contracts in that one print, listener. So they're not playing around. The rest of VALE is not doing anything today. It's only about 28,000 contracts, the rest of the tape. This is one player just putting up for size. Have you guys, we talked about it before multiple times, this VALE, and just what an embarrassment of riches that dividend is out there. Have you guys gotten into this one? I'd be curious. Hit us up. Let us know. Number 2, now we're getting into some, shall we say, actual paper out there. Apple, number 2, 759,000 contracts, up about $2.50 right now, or about 1.6%, hanging out a little bit north of 153. It's had a pretty decent range, about 420. That's a pretty good range for Apple. It broke 150 this morning, 149.10. Right now it's 153 and about a third. That's close to the high right now. So intriguing stuff. And again, good for 759,000 contracts. And number 1 out of the gate yet again today, listeners. A good old TSLA, north of 300 again, 306 even right now, up about 265 or almost a full percent. You know, this one's had a range. In this case, it's about a $12 range. It was trading as high as 309.80 this morning, got as low as 297.80. So this thing has been rocking and rolling out there. And again, good for 1.09 million contracts. So if you add up Apple and Tesla, they pretty much dwarf everything else on the rest of the top 10 out there. But that's the kind of day we're having out there. You know what else we're having, listeners? Is a little bit more earnings on the docket. So we're not quite done. Not quite yet. So we got AutoZone today, a hot one. I know a lot of you waiting with bated breath for the AutoZone numbers. A Wednesday, General Mills, Lennar Homes, and KB Homes, getting some home builders on the docket. That'll be interesting because that sector obviously under pressure in a rising rate environment. So we'll get some more insight there. Thursday, the Meatball's favorite of all names, Darden Restaurants. The man cannot get enough.
Darden.
Eats at Darden all the time. We've got a breadstick machine just for his home use, just to make the Olive Garden breadsticks at home. He likes them so much. Darden on Thursday, as well as Costco and FedEx. FedEx kind of already screwed the pooch. I don't know what they have left to deliver for us, but intriguing stuff out there. Of course, we're waiting to re-rack the earnings season report for you listeners when the new season officially commences. It doesn't mean we're not tracking some fun names for you out there, listeners, including we've got Darden. There we go. Darden, 22nd before the bell. 129.68 is where they were as of this report. Of course, they're 131.69 now, so they have popped about $2. They're pricing $6.88. In the past, they moved $8.11, so pricing in a little bit less juice out there in the land of Darden Restaurants. Not enough breadstick vol? I guess we'll find out. And also Costco on the 22nd this week. They're trading $504.14. Nice and juicy for Costco. Pricing their straddle about $20 and a quarter. In the past, they moved $9.19. Oh, my goodness. That is a heck of a lot of extra juice for Costco. A little bit of toilet paper and hot dog vol for Costco listeners. Wow, I'll have to delve into why that report, why that straddle is looking so juicy out there in Costco. Speaking of juicy, you know the last season was pretty juicy. 113% to be precise. So, again, one of the most robust, if not the most robust season we have seen since the onset of the pandemic. You want to see all those numbers for yourselves. You know where to go. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires out there. Meanwhile, it's time for us to go into our next segment. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. Let's do it. Let's get weird. Let's get wild. Let's get reckless here as we unleash the Eye of Sauron. See what it comes back with for us. And our first one out of the gate, I'm trying to remember if we've talked about this one on the Odd Block before. If we have, it has been quite some time. This is Schlumberger. Schlumberger, ticker symbol SLB, oil field services company out there. It's obviously a pretty interesting, pretty hot sector out there these days. Trading right now, 38 3/4, up about 1% on the day. On the year, obviously, you know, they had a nice run and probably have given some of that back. You can probably guess this chart if you had to think about it in your heart of hearts there. A year ago, they were trading 27 1/4, so about $11.50 below where they are right now. And they kind of hung out at that level for a while. Then, of course, the start of this year, pretty much the exact end of last year, December 31st, was the beginning of the rally for them. They took off, but then January 4th, they went from $29 all the way up to $34 on January 6th. By March 8th, of course, post-invasion, they were trading $45. And then they shot up to their high for the year on June 8th. Wow, how that works, June 8th. Another one of these names. Hitting its apex on June 8th of $49.83. Then they came for it hard. It sold off to its low for the year a little over a month later on July 14th. It hit, well, actually, no, it hit 31.33 then. It actually wasn't the low for the year. The low for the year was where it kicked off a year ago, 26.64. So that was the low. But the low of the last 6 months was 31.33. That was back on July 14th. And then it rallied again back up to about 40, about 40 1/4. That was just last week. And then since then, it has given some of that back to where it is right now, 38 3/4 listeners. And Mr. Meatball, we have what is definitely one of the, if not the largest single name options prints going up out there today in good old Schlumberger. We first saw a print of 38,492 of the October 46s going up, lifting the offer for 30 cents. So we might think, well, this is just a straight up someone loving themselves some upside in SLB. But we took a look at it and we saw, it's 29 at 30. That's a oddly tight market. Maybe there was some resting action there in the market. So we sent our Eye of Sauron back to look, and sure enough, there were a lot of other prints going up before this, including 3,200 for 33 cents, 2,073 for 31, 1,278 for 35, etc., and so on and so forth, all the way down for a total. I believe the total when we kicked off the show was around 52,000. Let's get the updated total right. 54,500 of these OC 46s have now traded on the day. The earliest print we could find here that kind of seemed like it kicked off this palooza was a 721 lot going up when the stock was $38.91. I went up for 35 cents, a penny off the bid, which makes us wonder if these aren't kind of just someone started nibbling away at offers and then selling some more. We saw 31 cents going up again, a penny off the bid, a penny off the bid, penny off the bid again. And then it seemed like they kind of parked the rest for 30 cents. And they finally got someone to come take the rest of them. So, Mr. Meatball, is that your takeaway as well? Do you think someone was just kind of nibbling and nibbling, and they finally dumped the block, and they found maybe another side to take it? Or do you think this was someone a scoop in a whole bunch for prices around 30-odd cents, sir?
I think it's just somebody was just it's got to be an overwrite. That's $8 out of the money. You're looking for 20% upside. I think it's just someone that's long, maybe harvesting a little less than 1%, selling that premium.
Selling the preem and living the dream. This one come up on your big money flow. It's kind of hard to miss this one today.
Yeah, it was hard to miss this one. It did, in fact, come on my big money flow.
And, in a day when it's kind of quiet sailing out there, all of a sudden this big tsunami wave comes through. It's pretty hard to dodge this one. But yeah, this is why it takes sometimes listeners a little bit more digging to ferret out what's going on. If you just look at this first print, you might think, someone's really swinging for the fences to buy these, and gobbling up a big block. But the actual intent of the initial customer does seem like they were looking to overwrite these bad boys out there. All right, let's go to, this was a frequent offender for a while. I haven't talked about them in a couple of months. This is our old friend, Canada Goose. Ticker symbol GOOS, GOOS. Of course, you know them. They make, shall we say, optimistically priced winter clothing because they put that little patch on it. I think you like this pretty generic parka? How about if we slap a Canada Goose patch on? Okay, how about 2X now? How's that sound? Guess it's working. People, I see them around a lot, so people want that patch out there. Trading 17.5 right now, up about a third of a buck on the year. Let's see, a year ago, $36.41. So they pretty much have been cut in half, listeners. Even though they rallied all the way up to their high for the year on November 16th, $53.64. And that was pretty much all she wrote for that one. That's been pretty much a long and sordid history of dark side ever since. Seems like they hit their low. Well, they flirted with this 1665 level a couple of times. July 14th, they flirted with it again back in early September. So they've flirted with this low a couple of times over the last few months. And they pretty much have been hanging out at this, 17.5 and below range for the better part of the last few months. They had a brief flirtation in August. Seems like it got up to almost $22 again. Yeah, 22.75 actually, August 12th. And that was kind of their near-term fizzle. And they kind of have just been looking pretty rough ever since. And Mr. Meatball, we've been talking about someone out there for a while now has been drawing lines in the sand in Canada Goose puts. It seems like they are back. And once again, they're going into the weeklies. This has kind of been a bit of a frequent offender out here in the weeklies. This time we saw 11,790 of the October expiring on the 7th. So these are in the weeklies, listeners. 15 puts going up for 17 cents. They got a whopping 2 cents off the bid. That is a 65 vol if you are intrigued, listeners. The stock was a little bit lower when they sold these, about 30 cents lower. It was $17.23. So stock has bounced a little bit since then. There are no earnings in this. The next earnings are on November 14th. So, Mr. Meatball, this seems like yet another kind of just straight up weekly bit of harvesting ye old risk premium. If I recall, to go look at some of the other prints we talked about too. But as I recall, they weren't getting a ton of juice for any of these sales. They're kind of just coming in, harvesting some juice. And if they buy the stock, $1.50 below the 52-week low, I guess so be it, sir. What do you think about these puts?
Yeah, it is. I think they're just looking to harvest a little over 1% and be happy about it. That is what I'm getting. That is what I'm picking up out of this.
That is what you're picking up out of this, indeed. All right, and for our final name / victim on the odd block out here today, let's go out. We got some reviews we can do, but let's go out to this one really quickly because this looks like this might be, this is a newcomer here to the odd block listeners. This is everyone's favorite, INVZ. INVZ Technologies. This is INVZ Technologies, ticker symbol INVZ. Perhaps I'm trying to look for a description of what they do. They're an Israeli tech-oriented name. That's about all I can see right here. Not a very useful description. Trading $5.50. Let's see. On the year, a year ago, they were trading $6.20. So it's kind of been a bit of a topsy-turvy year for this name. Then they sold off down to $4.64 in November, and then popped to their high for the year, $8.03. That was on right about November 22nd or so. And they kind of hung out there for a little bit, then they gave it up again. By January 27th, they were trading $3.40. And then they hit their low for the year on April 22nd of $2.89. And then they popped up again to $5.12 and right back down. This chart looks like a biotech. Then let's see, they shot up again in July from $3.40 all the way up to $6.12 on August 12th, and then gave it up again by August 22nd. They were back to $4.73, and they've been bouncing in this kind of $4.70 to $5.80 or so range pretty much ever since, hanging out right now right around $5.50, pretty much unched on the day. And it looks like we got some more good old premium harvesting going on out there. Oh, this is a LiDAR manufacturer. They make sensors for LiDAR. So, those systems in your car, listeners, that do a lot of the automatic braking and all the other good stuff. They make the sensors for those, also drones and everything else out there. So that's what they do. So they're not a biotech, but they have tech in the name, and certainly they have been popping like a tech name. And in particular, we see the Nove 6s going up today, a nice even 10,000 lock. I can appreciate when someone comes in and just slings a nice round lock. Sometimes they're doing, 6,743, weird numbers. This time, nice even 10,000 coming in. The Nove 6s, so about $0.50 out of the money. Blasting away at those for 64 cents. That stock was pretty much right here, $5.59. Let's see, what did they get for juice? That's about a 90 vol. It's an 89.6 to be precise. So that's a fair amount of juice. Again, this name does pop. The high for the year is $8. So you could be leaving a couple of bucks, about $1.40 on the table if they get back up to those levels. But intriguing stuff. Nove, so let's see. There are earnings there on November 9th. So there will be earnings in this cycle. So Mr. Meatball, this is kind of a wild and crazy Israeli cheapy tech name that kind of whipsaws all over the place. And someone coming in to draw a line to the upside right now on the Nove 6s for 64 cents. Going through earnings, sir. What do you think of these?
It's a calculated risk. I don't know that I love the play. I don't know that I love selling calls on a $6 stock because you never know when it's going to get squeezed. It's a play.
That it is, sir. It is a play indeed. Yeah, this one, it's a fair amount of juice, so that could certainly be attractive to some folks, but I could easily see perhaps coming to regret this, especially with earnings baked in. I mean, this thing can rock and roll on any random Tuesday, let alone on an earnings day. So there's a reason they're giving you a 90 vol on these. And perhaps this person will discover that. We shall see. What do you think? You like these? Would you like to sell these? Are you a fan of these INVZ Nove 6s? Somebody is, to the tune of 10,000. Now let's see what you folks are also fans of, because it is time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the mail block. You guys get to ask questions. We also turn the spotlight back on you folks. Let's first go pay off our question of the week from last week. Then we'll reveal our new question of the week for this week. Just went live right before showtime. And we asked you last week, we've seen an explosion of newcomers to options trading in recent years. So we thought we'd revisit the age-old question. When did you start trading options? Gave you 4 choices. You just started this year, so you're new to the markets in 2022. Or you came in during the pandemic rush period, 2020 and 2021. Or you're in that decade post-Great Financial Crisis, 2009 to 2019. Or you're, for the terms of this poll, quote-unquote old school, prior to 2009. And the largest data set got the largest number of votes, go figure. The post-Great Financial Crisis, 38.5%. The interesting thing is that old school and pandemic rush were kind of lockstep for pretty much the entire poll. They were neck and neck, and they went out exactly tied. They were exactly tied multiple times during the poll, which is kind of weird. And they went out exactly tied, a 28.8% each for the pandemic rush and old school below 2009. So as many people in this poll, at least, are old school as had just joined in the pandemic heyday. And then 3.8% of you just started this year. We pulled that nugget out separately because I had a feeling that might be a little bit higher. 3.8% seems a little bit low to me. Just seeing the numbers we see and hearing the feedback and engagement with the network, we know there are a lot of newcomers out there. So that kind of surprised me a little bit, but intriguing stuff. Either way, when you add these numbers up, you're getting close to a third of the audience has come in since the pandemic. So a lot of new players out there. Welcome to all of you out there. A lot of you mainlining shows like this, and of course Options Bootcamp for a lot of newcomers coming in that way as well. So welcome to all of you folks out there. This week, our question of the week, speaking of Options Bootcamp, was inspired by a debate we had going on, actually by a lot of the feedback and questions you guys have been sending into that show. We've been joking for a little while that maybe we're in a bit of an Iron Condor assance. Maybe these things are making a comeback. When we first created the Options Insider way back, the dark days, 15 plus years ago now. Crazy to say out loud, but it has been that long. And back then, Iron Condors were all the rage. Nobody could shut up about them. There were tons of services out there marketing Iron Condors as the hot thing. This was the way to trade options. If you didn't trade Iron Condors, you were an idiot. And it lasted for a few years until it seemed like a lot of those services kind of went the way of the dodo. People moved on to other things. Iron Condor obviously still around, still a popular strategy, but I don't think it's quite what it was. But that said, some of the feedback we've been getting lately over there in Options Bootcamp, some of the other shows, made us wonder, maybe are we perhaps in the middle of a bit of an Iron Condor renaissance? Is it back? Or maybe it never left. I don't know. So I thought we'd put it to you guys this week. Seems like we might be in the middle of an Iron Condor assance. This strategy was super hot about a decade ago, but seems to have cooled in recent years. Is this strategy making a comeback? Gave you 4 choices out there. Yes, I am trading condors out there again. Nope. I prefer its nemesis, the old iron fly. Remember, we've had people say many times on the network, the Iron Condor is an iron butterfly for cowards. Or, you prefer the more straight-up butterfly. Or the other option, they never went away. Mr. Meatball, I'd be curious, what is your vote? And then what do you think our audience is voting for, sir?
I'm going to say the audience is going, they never went away. But I am a butterfly guy. I think we all know that.
You are definitely more of a fly guy, yes. And the audience agrees with you right now. No, I prefer butterflies. 42.9%, Mr. Meatball. And then, yes, I am trading Iron Condor. So, yes, you agree that we are in the middle of an Iron Condor assance, 28.6%. And then a tie for third, 14.3% each for no, I prefer flies. And they never went away. Do you agree with that narrative, Mr. Meatball? Do you think Iron Condors were super hot a decade plus ago and they kind of cooled? And given all your interactions with your mentees out there, do you think maybe they are making a comeback?
I don't like them. I don't like the risk reward around them. I know some people do, but I'm not a fan. I don't like the risk reward. I don't think And they're way harder than people think. And they never capture the edge that they think they're capturing. There's not a lot of vega in them, so high vol, low vol, they don't pay that well. They actually think they do better in a low vol market. And so, yeah, I don't love it.
Not a fan of the owner. I've never been a huge iron condor guy as well. I definitely like a fly or better, or even an iron butterfly. If you're going to do it, go big or go home, as opposed to the wiggle room out there. But intriguing stuff. Speaking of intriguing stuff, let's get to this one here from the intriguingly named BLS0603. That's a very memorable handle there, BLS. He or she wants to know, do you know of any brokers that allow for complex options trading without a margin account? Well, that's so many subjective things in there. First off, complex, different broker. We just saw that last year, right? With the whole madness around Robinhood and they're shutting things down around GameStop. What they viewed to be complex and what a lot of different brokers viewed to be complex was different. It varied depending on the broker. That said, a lot of people do trade in IRAs, and that's a very popular use case. And a lot of the strategies we were talking about today, obviously cash secured put, you can't go a naked put, and covered calls, and a lot of the base strategies, as long as you have naked legs that require that margin element, then you can do a lot of this stuff in the old IRA. In fact, it's the preferred way for a lot of people for all the tax reasons. Mr. Meatball, though, specifically BLS0603 wants to know, do you know of any brokers that allow for complex options trading without a margin account, sir?
Yeah, most brokers you can trade complex options without a margin account. You should not need margin at all to trade, butterflies and iron condors, things like that. That is silliness that they would make you. Now, what you might need it for is some of the really complex stuff, like short time spreads, things like that, or ratio spreads, that will tie up a lot of margin. Then you might need a margin account. But if you're just doing, standard 1-2-1 flies, things like that, you 100% do not and should not need a margin account.
Yeah, there's this perception out there that, options are super risky. They require all this different stuff out there. And a lot of the strategies we just talked about, the ones Mark just detailed, most of the ones we talk about here on the show, you're not really going to often hear us talk about buy one, sell three ratio spreads to the upside or things like that would require a lot of those types of accounts, for obvious reasons, a lot of risk associated with those types of trades. So if you're looking to do a lot of the stuff we talk about here on the network, then yeah, you can do well in regular account or even the old IRA account for reasons I mentioned earlier, the taxes being the primary driver out there. We got a comment here on the live from the old OG, aka Option God. He says, you guys should do a whole show on iron condors. Could be fun. Yeah, I think given the feedback that we've gotten on that, it was the genesis for the question of the week, after all. I think we might do that. Maybe we'll do an upcoming episode of Boot Camp. I don't think it's been a while since we've revisited iron condors on that show. So it sounds like it might be the time for it, even if our audience chooses that we are not in an iron condor assance. And right now they are not. They're choosing butterflies, so they're saying no. But even if they don't, there's enough, it seems like, interest in this strategy again to perhaps warrant a deep dive. I think we have Mr. Matt from Orats joining us on the show this week. So I don't know if we're going to have a chance to do it this week, but we can definitely get an iron condor palooza there on Options Bootcamp down the road. If that's what you guys want, hit us up if you guys are intrigued. Meanwhile, it's time for us to keep on rolling. It is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on until we gather here together on the program on Thursday. And it looks like we're pretty much hanging out not that far away from where we were at the start of the show. Markets hovering to slightly red out there. Not a heck of a lot of change on the docket. Usually these types of markets, you wait an hour and you have a very different market on your hands. This is not the case right now. VIX has come in a little bit. It's come in about a quarter of a point or so as well. So again, not a heck of a lot of evolution while we've been chatting here on the show. Mr. Meatball, sir, What are you keeping an eye on until our next episode on Thursday?
Well, we have this thing called the Federal Reserve coming up. That could be interesting. We've got VIX.
I've never heard of it. Why don't you explain what that is for our listeners?
Yeah, no. We've got VIX expiration coming up. Those two things I think are going to be should be pretty interesting. I think the Federal Reserve in particular. A lot of people, we sold off on that Nomura note. I don't know that I buy that, but that press conference is going to be very interesting. Other than that, other than the Fed, I don't see a lot of other big, huge things on my economic calendar. And we do have Darden Restaurants, which I think is going to be believe it or not, I'm interested in what their guidance is, not because I like the food, but I think it's a pretty good view of where the American dining consumer is. Because, they do have a lot of, they got Olive Garden and a bunch of other stuff. I do like the Capitol Grill that they own. I will say that. I'm not against the Capitol Grill.
It's a very big swing in restaurants that they have. Capitol Grill on one hand and then Olive Garden on the other. Different consumer. I haven't been to a Capitol Grill in forever. I might need to swing back for one of those. Unfortunately, listeners, that music means we are done swinging back here. The end has come, at least for this episode here. But if you need more in your lives and you're listening live, just hang out. We'll be back in a wee little bit with your buddy, Mr. Meatball. Your buddy, Mr. Greg Magadini, going to be joining us on the crypto show in a little bit here to break down all the madness going on in the world of crypto. A little bit of vol on the screen, a little bit of red on the screen always makes for some interesting action. We have added Solana into the mix now, Solana options at his behest. So now not just Bitcoin, not just ETH, but breaking down the world of Solana options. So check it out over there. The Crypto Rundown coming up in a little bit after this show. If you're listening live, if you're listening after the fact, just hit next. It'll be there waiting for you on your device of choice. And Mr. Meatball, if folks want to hit you up over there in the land of the pit, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to optionpit.com. I'm putting out content every day. Sign up for our newsletters. Join us, and I'm going to send you something worth reading every single day if you sign up for my VIX Edge and Pit Report and all the other great analysis that we do.
Something worth reading, maybe a dirty joke or two thrown in there. You never know. Optionpit.com. Sign up for the newsletter. He likes to work blue with a meatball. That's all I'm going to say. So not safe for kids, the emails. But good stuff, good nuggets in there. Maybe he'll talk about iron condors versus iron flies. You never know. Optionpit.com is the place to go. You know where you got to go to find out more about all things Uncle Mike as well. stcharleswealth.com is the place to begin your journey into the land of all things Uncle Mike goodness. We got to get on out of here. Like I said, back again in a little bit for the Crypto Rundown. Even if you don't trade crypto, even if you're like Uncle Mike and you're like, I hate this stuff, Bitcoin sucks, it still is a very active, very volatile marketplace, and it certainly makes sense to at least pay attention to what's going on out there. So check it out. If you're subscribed to the network, it's coming in at you at the feed anyway. So check it out over there, the Crypto Rundown. And then back again tomorrow for another great pro Q&A session. We've got Carly Garner joining us again. You folks love to get at her all of your futures options questions. She's always good for a crazy ladder or risk reversal or something in nat gas, something fun. So get those questions about all things futures options coming in now for Carly tomorrow. Then, of course, Wednesday, Options Bootcamp. Maybe the Iron Condor deep dive, or maybe I think we might be doing some earnings and some other fun there with Mr. Matt, as well as OPR. Then back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options. stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.